under the shadow of this gray rock. Come in under the shadow of this gray rock.
I think that Harold really needed the attention that came along with being a horse. I think that he needed that same kind of discipline that a horse had. He needed to be ridden in the morning, in the afternoon, night, and not to really have to worry about anything else.
He just said that horses were free and powerful and beautiful, and he just always wanted to feel and live the way that a horse did.
Besides the strange part of him, I think he was a whiny little bitch. I complained all the time how his life was terrible. Told me how miserable he was in his present condition, but I kept my distance.
I haven't seen Harold in some time. For all I know, he could be out there having little kids ride on his back and really become the person, become the horse he wanted to be.
The horse's life. Once a life synchronized with mankind's, balanced like mankind's between work and recreation, has now become a life of leisure. Occasionally pulling a hay rack or racing around a track, the majority of a horse's life is made up of galloping through fields and swatting flies with its tail. That must have sounded like quite the life to Harold Maines, a man possessed with an inescapable desire to become a horse. This desire eventually destroyed his family life and sent him on a quest into the rural areas of his native Illinois. And just when that quest appeared to have failed, Harold disappeared, leaving behind him nothing but a letter and a horse.
Dear believer, this is pathetic, but I have to start by telling you I'm really not in any shape to be writing this letter. I keep drooling on the table, and the last few days I've been forgetting the names of familiar objects. The way I'll get through this is to focus on the hurt of leaving my children behind. I could have addressed this to you, Winnie and Mare. You're my only anchor here, and it's tearing at me. This body has always felt so wrong to me, and I want to show you what's led me to believe I might soon be able to reach a more beautiful, spiritual state.
Harold was the son of Jacob and Beatrice Maines. Beatrice died while giving birth to Harold, leaving Jacob a single father. In his final manuscript, Harold recalled the few facts he had been able to glean about his mother.
My mother chose my name. It's one of a handful of random things I can remember about her. Her family kindly struggles to remember details, and I wonder if they're getting any of it right. They said her hands were often cold and she would sit on them. Also, she prayed often, but would curse out loud at the sight of a church.
Water and your wine.
These scattered fragments are more than I ever got from my father, Jake.
Parker Ray Sistowitz, one of his few childhood friends, remembers those early years.
Harold and I, we didn't really talk much. You know, just stuff like try to make ourselves invisible. Like, I figured if we just tried hard enough, tried long enough, maybe we'd get something like that, like levitation in there, trying to hear what the other person was thinking. Stuff like that drove his dad crazy. Like, just, you know, two boys going into the room for so long. Like, I'm sure he thought we were like flaming homos or something, but it's a frog that Harold claimed he could hear the thoughts of this frog.
Parker's frog was not the only animal Harold claimed to have heard talk to him. In his letter, he tells of a day his father had taken him deer hunting.
Jake and I were up in a tree on one of those platforms, and I clearly heard the deer say, "No man is an island." I saw Jake's finger tighten on the trigger, and I realized the deer was completely unaware of our intent, so I started whistling the national anthem. As the deer scampered away, Jake took his eye off the scope, made a noise in his throat, and spit a loogie over the edge of the platform. When I thought maybe he had decided to ignore the incident, he hit me on the side of the head and asked, "What's going on in there?"
Harold's the kind of guy that, you know, he's not concerned with going around proving what a man he is. You know, he does what he wants to do. He's not your typical guy. This was a gift from Harold. He told me his name is Captain Roscoe. I asked him why he gave it to me. He said it was symbolic of our relationship.
Late in high school, Harold made an attempt at another relationship.
We met at a fair, like a county fair. I was in 4-H. You know, I can't really remember if Harold was in 4-H or why he was there, but he was always kind of around. He was older than me. He had great hair, and he had really great calves. They were just kind of big and they're nice. Whenever he wanted to kind of fool around, he would always want to be by the horse stalls. You know, I didn't really think anything of it then. I just thought, you know, that's kind of a secret place or something. There must be a good reason, you know, nobody would see us there. But now that I think about it, I mean, I don't know, maybe he kind of thought horses were sexy or something, but he never really talked about it. And really, like, my friends didn't think he was that cool. I mean, he had so much going for him. Like, I thought he was pretty attractive. He's older, but he's still, I don't know, they just didn't think he was that cool. I broke up with him after a while.
Harold's spirit was broken.
He walked once between the sea and the high places. The wind made him aware of his limbs smoothly passing each other. His eyes were aware of the pointed corners of his eyes, and his hands aware of the pointed tips of his fingers.
When Harold graduated high school, he decided to move into Chicago, away from his father, and get a job. We spoke with Seamus Olson, a fellow insurance agent who had started working at Sorensen Life as an intern for Harold.
As long as she's not legally blind.
He was kind of a strange character. As I said, he was very professional at work and very nice and friendly with his coworkers. But he always seemed a little bit, a little insecure. He always seemed like he was looking for something else. We both shared a love for cinema, and we always talked about movies, and we would go to movies from time to time. He really liked Westerns. One movie that we went and saw together was All the Pretty Horses, which he really, really liked. Having coffee after the movie, we were discussing our favorite parts of the movie, and I remember finding it strange. I was struck by Penelope Cruz and her beauty, whereas he thought that Matt Damon rode a very pretty horse.
While in Chicago, Harold would spend many of his off hours wandering the zoo.
We met in the Penguin House. The day we were there, for some reason, it stunk. They hadn't cleaned properly or something. It was really quite raunchy and very warm and very loud. So as we walked in, I think we sort of made some, disgusted face at one another, and our eyes met in a shared disgust, I think. I was quite beautiful when I was young, and probably pretty intimidating. So I really thought it was really gutsy of him, because he was not much to speak of physically, and we really just hit it off right away, and we went out and ended up spending the entire evening together. It was really love at first sight. We would always go to the zoo. It was sort of our meeting place, But I'm particularly fond of the cats, so we would spend a great deal of time waiting for one of the lions to roar. That was really fun back in the day.
It wasn't long before Harold and Barbara were married.
It was really just perfect. We had exactly the same goals and desires. I think we had a real similar lust for life, wanting to fulfill the American dream, get a job, buy a house, have a kid. We were really just on the same track. I think if he hadn't flipped out of his tree, everything would still be exactly the way we wanted it to be.
The boss would ride Harold a lot at work, and Harold didn't seem to mind it as much as a lot of his coworkers. Harold seemed to, in his relationships, be the submissive one. I think that was a desire that he had, to be dominated, to be ridden.
Our sexual life, I think, was quite fine. It really was. Nothing amazing, I mean, that's movie stuff. It was really fine. It was consistent. It was straightforward. I'm a very sensual person. I like to touch. But he started to become a little bit more fetishy. Is that a word? He apparently spent a great deal of our money on, I'm so embarrassed, a leather saddle. He wanted me to ride him around the apartment. And I think I got a little scared, and I'm open, but that's a bit much.
Barbara used to like to remind me of the warnings of our premarital counselor. Though it seemed I shared almost nothing of myself in our sessions, the counselor was concerned over the connection patterns in my family of origin. She said it would take a lot of adjustment and effort to make better connections with Barbara, and then with any children we would have. She said I would have to break the chain.
The player on your right, choose a horse from any ranch to give you. Horse. Right.
I think they had quite a good relationship. I mean, he wasn't the sharpest tack in the drawer. I think, I don't think he inspired them. But certainly he played with them. He was able to play, They played horsey a lot growing up. When I look back on it, there's so many signs. So it was nice for them because kids respond to that, and all the stories have animals in them. And so I didn't think it was any sort of detriment to them in the beginning. It kept them bonded,
Are you sure this is the one you want to read? Yeah. Yeah, you sure? Okay, come on. Come sit up. Okay. This is the one for sure, right? This is where you touch the horses, yeah. Pat the brown pony's soft coat. Did you want to, What does your coat feel like? I think we should read Touch and Feel the Winnie. Would that be a good book? I think it would be a better book, yeah.
You think about his family. I mean, Harold always comes over here. I've never been to his house, really. His wife would call after like 20 minutes, and he just got here. I mean, I can hear her yelling at him, like, "You're with some other woman, blah, blah, blah." I mean, why wouldn't you want to turn into a horse? Why wouldn't you do anything to get out of a situation like that?
It was during this tense period with Barbara that Harold first discovered a book by Raju Shah.
What is a triangle of power? Triangle of power? Triangle of power? Triangle of power?
When I read his book, I couldn't help but think of him as a mentor and friend. From the title onward, I was possessed with the thought that the book had been written specifically for me. I convinced my office to send me to his annual conference in San Antonio. Maybe he seemed a little put off by all of my questions, but I couldn't stop because he fascinates me.
What is a triangle of power? 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 Know yourself. Enjoy yourself. And enjoy others.
So what we've been talking about today is the triangle of power. And who knows the first point of the triangle of power? Anybody?
Actually, that's what the whole conference is about.
Know yourself.
And conference is a little bit of a big word.
And,
Let's just
on
say
the point
meeting
number
is
one,
about.
that would be
We talk about three different
so what we've
things
been
about
talking about today is
getting
really
to know
getting
yourself,
finding
enjoying yourself, and then once you have those two down, enjoying others. And that's what Harold came to do. And I think that's what actually made him come up to me and talk to me after about him becoming a horse. There's got to be something that is in your mind or that's carrying you somewhere or making you feel a certain way. And I think that's really knowing yourself. And Harold happens to be a guy that just likes to run around with kids on his back and be a horse. I don't know what that all means right now, but talking to Harold, I think he loves himself. And through that, he can love others.
What's your name, sir?
Bill Schermershine.
Bill, where are you from?
Corpus Christi.
Great. What brought you here today?
Well, I'm just curious about getting to know myself better, I guess. You think enjoy yourself. Everyone probably knows how to enjoy themselves, but I don't know really what I want to be or what I want to do.
Did everyone hear that question? That's a great question there, Bill.
There have been many times that I have doubted whether there was anything I could do to make it happen, but every single time, something insane would happen to confirm my faith in the impossible. One day, Mare and I went for a walk through our neighborhood. I remember that morning I had been especially hopeful over my place in our family, thinking I would be able to stay and that I belonged with them. It was pretty cloudy and we thought it might rain, so we put Mare's raincoat on her. We walked along quietly, like usual, enjoying the dampness and the electric charge in the air. When it did start to rain, Mare was sticking out her tongue to taste it. Everything was so pleasant, but something felt very strange. I turned around to see if anyone was following us. Then it struck me. I looked at my arms, and though I could see the rain falling all around me, I couldn't find a drop on me. I got down in someone's lawn and tried to find a dry blade of grass. This seemed a good way to measure the probability of all the drops missing me. Mare's shoes came into my field of vision, but I wasn't ready to stop looking. "What are you doing, Daddy?" I stopped moments later when I realized she was shivering. I looked up at her, lightly flipped some of the wetness out of her hair, and put up her hood. While we walked, I shared, not quite everything, but more than I had told anyone before. I told her about the animals and the broken horse in my dreams. Maybe these were the most heartbreaking moments of my life. When we got back to the house, on the porch she pulled me back again. She said, "Daddy, you should be a cowboy."
Struck down by such knowledge, he could not live men's ways, but became a stallion before God. If he walked in city streets, he seemed to tread on faces, convulsive thighs and knees.
Probably about a year ago. It was a Thursday or Friday afternoon at work, and I remember he took off a little bit early, and he said that he had to take a little bit of time off, and that was actually the last I saw of him. That was the last anyone at work saw of him.
He took the children. He took Mare and Winnie one day with him to a field where they stayed, and he kept those poor children there for almost 2 days and didn't call me, didn't do anything. So I was very scared. It was a big incident. Police came. They were searching for them. And do you know where they found them? They found them outside of Dubuque. Dubuque. The kids were scared. They were hungry. He'd actually tried to get them to eat hay. I tried to talk to them to see if anything else horrible went on. They've been very closed-mouthed about it still, but they're different. Something changed in them on that weekend. And I think that was it. I think he scared himself that day. Because when they all came back, and of course I didn't press any charges, and the kids seemed fine, tired, a little confused, but fine. And I think I just shut down at that point, and he did too. And we actually didn't even speak about it. He just left.
Harold spent the next couple weeks roaming the streets of Chicago. He would spend his evenings in local taverns, and they would kick him out onto the street as they closed.
Every month or so, I go into the city. About 6 months ago, I guess it was, I went to my favorite bar in the city. It's kind of a manly bar. There's lots of men there. I was looking around, and I noticed a new man there, and I always like to meet new men, so I went up and talked to him, and it turned out to be Harold. When I met him, I asked him right away if he had a job, and see if he would come work on the ranch with me because, you know, he seemed like a really nice young fella.
They look okay, Carl?
Oh yeah, I think they look just fine.
The horses are okay.
There's a lot of dung out there.
Name's Carl Jenkins. I've been a farmhand here on this ranch for, well, pretty near 15 years about now. And it's a fine ranch. A boss that I met at a bar one night. I was rolling through town on my way to Hollywood. And, you know, he said he needed a farmhand. I said, well, you know, I'm pretty handy. I've seen farms before. I'm from Tuscaloosa, after all. You know, I mostly concentrate on the horses. And I clean up a lot of, you know, poop and stuff. I don't know how to term it for you folks so you understand it, but we got to keep that a little bit clean, because if you let it just keep going, you know, pretty soon it'll be knee deep on all the horses, and you know, it's an untenable situation.
My name is Brian Jones. I work here. I clean up all the shit he misses. You know, he says he's gonna clean it up, but I do it. I went to school, got a degree in computers, you know, but no one's hiring, you know, slow economy and all.
Harold had come to the farm hoping to be near the animals he loved so much, but even here, he encountered obstacles.
He would always kind of stand along the fence. He wanted to work with the horses so desperately, you know, but that's my job. And he would stand along the fence, and I would see his face, and he would so want to be inside with the horses, but I wouldn't let him. I didn't really trust him. Horses are delicate beasts now. You can't move too fast around them and what have you. I did that once. I got a scar up here on my side. I might show that to you later, but it's a little bit closer to the ass than you know, maybe is appropriate.
We want to really just pick it up and we want to move it.
Is that what you learned in cheerleader camp?
You know, I never went to Arkansas. No one else ever stood outside the fence like that, and, you know. Just the way that he looked at the horses and followed every move around, almost as if he was studying something. I thought it was strange.
The last night I saw him when we were at a bar. It was one of the few times you ever see me and Harold together. And he proceeded to talk about being a horse, and I took it as him hitting on me. So I kind of gave him a good one. Spent the day in the hospital, but you talk like that, what do you expect?
It was while in the hospital that Harold confided his wish to become a horse to a nurse. This nurse took sympathy on Harold and directed him to visit Laura Babcock, a local shop owner and practitioner of witchcraft that might be able to help him. Harold leapt at the opportunity.
I run a little store in town. It's called Mother Earth's Natural Treasures, and I sell herbs and home remedies. It's sort of my front because a lot of people don't know that I'm actually a witch, and I don't think that they would take very kindly, but people in town really enjoy my shop. It's the only place around that you can get the kinds of things that I sell. A lot of times they come in and they have problems. You know, they'll have a backache or a problem with their foot that nobody can seem to cure, and they don't know it, but after I give them their little herbs, I perform a spell for them. It works every time. They come back to me, they say, thank you so much for giving me that ointment. It cleared my problem right up. They don't know that it was really my spell that was the reason that their problem went away, but that's all right. It just makes me feel good that they feel better. Harold actually found out about me through one of my former clients, and he came to me one day. He came into my shop, and he was really kind of shy. He whispered real quiet, I hear that you can perform spells. And I said, who did you hear that from? And he, told me his friend, and I said, all right, well, come in the back room and we'll see what we can do. And then he told me that he wanted a spell that could change somebody into a horse. And I told him, I'm sorry, you must have been misinformed. Witches do not turn people into frogs and perform black magic and transfiguration spells. And I actually got really mad at him, but then he stopped me and he said, no, I'm sorry, you misunderstood me. I need a spell to turn me into a horse. And I said, why would you want to be a horse? And He told me that it had been a lifelong dream of his, that he felt like that's what he should have been born as, and that he was in the wrong body. Well, how can you turn someone away that is hurting like that?
I spent a lot of time around people, but not much time interacting with them. When I was younger, I wandered alone for hours. Later on, I laid back in my recliner and stared into the television, as my children know me best. I've talked with deer and frogs, but I've rarely had a successful conversation with another human being. The potion I have here is supposed to take me out of this dual life. I got it from a witch, and then I mixed it with enough speed to put down anything on 2 legs. If this letter is kept for my children, somebody please tell Winnie that Uncle Parker will get his wobble horse out of the attic if they've taken it away again. And tell them Parker said he'd come over and beat up Charlie if he doesn't treat them as well as his own kids. Tell them someday somebody will set them on a horse at a carnival or circus, and I'll be there.
It was an odd situation, really. I happened to be standing outside his living room about 9 p.m. one night, and he was dancing around, getting all excited. He had a potion there, and he drank that potion, and I don't know what the hell happened, but it looked like something out of The Mask or Teen Wolf or what have you. You know, it just all lights and flashes and stuff, and little noises, kind of stuff going on. It was a new experience for me.
I'm not sure if I'm writing this or only dreaming I'm writing. I see something up ahead. I think it's the horse from my dream, but there's someone next to him. She looks like my mother.
So he came out under the rock. He was sure he had been a tree, a fish, a young girl caught in the woods by a drunken old man. He became a stallion to God. Because his flesh was in love with the burning arrows, he pranced on the hot sand until the arrows came.
That night, the man that was Harold disappeared.
One morning we woke up and we went into his bunk, and there was a brand new horse there, and it's not one of our horses on the ranch, and Harold was gone, and I haven't heard from him, and I know he would contact me if he was still around.
Well, here's the proof. Harold, this is your story. You want to come over here? Come on over here. Show him. Look at that. Is that a pretty horse right there? He wasn't a pretty man, but he's a pretty horse. I think, anyway.
Harold was very determined to become a horse, so I don't know, but he would have made a good horse.
You're raised in this country to think you can be what you want to be. I mean, be whatever you want to be. But I mean, look at me right now. I mean, I stay at my girlfriend's house quite a bit, but you know, when we're fighting, I'm back here in my bedroom. So.
You know, maybe I should try looking this horse up. I mean, you know, maybe I could go out there and give Harold another ride. He might like that. I might like that.
I don't believe horse shit like that. Carl, he's a sucker. He might believe it. I think Carl's been, you know, eating the mushrooms off the manure, if you know what I mean.
Carl, what are you doing?
Guy's nuts, but of course I have to work with him, and I try to make things work out.
I love coming out here early in the morning and looking at Harold from a distance.
We're planning on keeping Harold here for the rest of his life. I mean, Harold was always my favorite young man, and now he's my favorite horse. He gets very special treatment.
I think the story debunks itself. I hardly need to. I mean, I agreed to do this interview so that my side could be told, but I don't feel that anybody really believes this, and if they do, they're out of their minds.
So if you're going to do a report on the Navajo, what are you going to write about?
I'm going to write about where they live,
And where did they
There's
live?
a lot of red tape right now.
Where did they live?
Which is very, I mean, God, if he wanted to do this, why didn't he could have just done it right? You know, said, here are the papers, I'm out of here. find yourself another husband and father for your children, and I'm gone.
I'm not sure I could be a Navajo Indian.
I heard a story about a Navajo turning into an eagle, and
Well, we know that that's not possible, right?
If that was, yeah.
Right. That's a myth. And we don't do that. We don't have myths in this family, okay? We talk of the truth. We say what actually happened. People don't turn into animals in real life, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of horses in my time. I grew up in the Garden State, a lot of farms and things like that. And if this man had such an affinity to horses, why is he being so evil? I mean, there's nothing evil about a horse. I mean, if that's the animal that you have an affinity to, you don't act like a snake. You can't be a horse and act like a snake.
Can he be a horse and still take care of his children? Can they still find joy in what he is and what he does? Can he still be a protector of some sort? Be a nurturer of some sort? I think so. I mean, if you look at the horses throughout history, they've been, next to a dog, a man's best friend. You know, they bring a lot of joy to people. They take people from point A to point B. Even though he's not a human, there's still a lot of human qualities in him.
And maybe I'll be driving down a road, I'll hear something from the horse and just like pop in my head. Like, Harold's doing okay, or Harold. Or maybe it's just a step for him, you know, like, you know, on some kind of chain of, you know, ascending somehow, and you know, who knows what's next for him. I don't think this is the end. I don't think he's just become a horse, and you know, and that's it for him. I think he's gonna keep moving on. I don't know what's next, but you know, I've always expected a lot out of Harold.
Is there anything that you want to become?
I am that right now. I am the person that kind of just wants to see everybody be happy like I'm happy, and motivate people to go after their goals and go after their dreams and really attain what they want.
I always kind of wanted to be a folk singer, but I get stage fright.
I'm not inspired by Harold's story. I think it's hoopla. I don't believe in man can change into a horse. I'm pretty grounded, you know. I study computers. I know what's what.
Harold made me realize, even before he became a horse, but especially now, he always talked about how you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want if you want it enough and you do what you have to do. And he went through. He led by his actions, and he went and became a horse. I think that should be an inspiration to everybody.
Well, you know, I don't like to talk about that a whole lot, but I always did have, you know, a good mind to maybe be like a cheerleader for the University of Arkansas. I worked on that a little, you know, go Hogs! I worked on that for a while, but I never went to Arkansas at all, actually. But I thought about it.
I've always thought it would be great to be a cat. You know, they just kind of lay around, sleep whenever they feel like it, sleep in the sun, kind of hide in small places. I think since I've heard about this thing about Harold, I've been taking naps, you know, whenever I feel like taking a nap. I don't really care so much, you know, when you're supposed to take a nap or when you're supposed to go to bed. I've been more free about that, you know.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm so much inspired by Harold because, you know, I wouldn't want to become a horse. But I do think that it opens your eyes to the world of possibilities.
You know, if I was going to become something, maybe Captain Roscoe would be a good option. You know, he's got his little saber, scope, just sitting on a cannon, you know, ready to blast anybody that's gonna get in his way. I mean, I don't know if he's a pirate or a general or whatever, but.
I'm thinking about taking a Martha Stewart course because I've been watching her show a lot lately, and she really does some crafty things, and I think I might be kind of good at that, and maybe start my own business up in the North Shore, you know, sort of custom designing pieces for people. We'll see. That's just maybe on the side once everything settles. But Charlie, that's my new significant other, has been really supportive of that, of me finding a little something for myself. I'm thinking about learning French too, so